Hey, welcome back to Content Marketing World Chatter. We got the equipment working again. So we're sorry for the blackout. I'm just kidding. I just like to add a little drama to the conversation. We're here with Carla Johnson, who just flew in from Barcelona, who was there for what, 2 years?
A year.
A year. It seemed like 2.
It did.
We
Some
missed
days
her.
it did.
We missed her. Now listen, let me go back in history a bit. Let's remind them that you co-authored a book with Robert Rose here.
That's right. The Experiences, the Seventh Era of Marketing.
Yes. And what was your favorite? Can you share one takeaway from that book that you think might be helpful to the audience? Did you read it?
Yeah, I read half of it.
Okay.
I read the other half that I didn't. I read the important half. How's that?
And we're not going to announce which half that is, but that's coming out as a pop-up next Wednesday. Okay. When is the movie? Have you sold the movie rights?
We We are waiting for Meryl Streep to sign, and
yes.
then we'll be good.
I want to play Phil Kotler.
Oh,
yeah, that's
you
okay.
do that.
All right.
I think you should.
The fifth P.
Yeah.
We
haven't filled Clayton Christensen's shoes yet, but he's a size 15, so it takes a while.
I can't do that. No, I'm not going to help you out there. Now look, wait, tell me what you were speaking on yesterday.
Today, actually. I spoke on a lot of things yesterday, but today, my session was about architecting teams.
Okay.
And what we tend to do as marketers is that we have these job descriptions and we throw everything that we can think of into these job descriptions because we don't want to hire somebody and then 6 months later they go, no, I'm moving on because you're having me do all this stuff and it wasn't in my job description. So we create these huge long descriptions all based on the role that we want somebody to do. So roles are how we want somebody to behave in a particular situation. But what we miss is how do people naturally function? And that's who we are and what we do. So when we build teams that are based more naturally on people's talents versus the role that we want them to play, we have more innovative teams, we have more stable teams, and we have teams that interact and are more high performance teams.
Yeah. So you told me something the other day in the green room. We had you waiting for a while.
You did,
I apologize.
yeah, and there were rude. Brown M&Ms everywhere.
That's right.
I'll file a complaint about that.
She has a very short temper. About this point about what if you supported an employee in his or her career based on that person's talent, based on what their gifts are, rather than, well, here's your title.
Yep, absolutely, because when you look at that, like I call it people's natural genius. So one of your natural geniuses is that you're a bit of a provocateur and you challenge that status quo. And so when we see that kind of a person on a team, a lot of times we say, man, how come you always got to be in my face? Why can't we just put the strategy together, put it out the door? Like, why do you always have to be,
Did you read my HR file from IBM?
I think I may have. I read every personnel file ever put together on you. Yeah, and so, but for a provocateur, that's just their natural genius. Like, that's how they look at the world is, well, why can't it be better? Why can't it be different? Why can't we try these things? We want people like this on our team, but we need to be able to understand how to bring the talent out of everybody so that we can help provocateurs be successful, strategists be successful, like culture shapers and collaborators. So we look at teams and the dynamics differently and then overlay the role we need them to play. But when you start just with the role, then you may have a strategist that's really in a wrong position. You give them a title of strategist, but you need strategists who are writers and video editors and all sorts of things to really be successful.
All right, and is it fair to say, is provocateur, that's French for jackass?
Yes, absolutely. It's a little nicely more labeled.
A little polished there?
Exactly.
I like that. I appreciate that. Look, so you speak to companies you were actually just in Singapore.
I was,
speaking about this and helping companies kind of think about, all right, here's how we can apply this and here's how we shape this. Is most of your work speaking at conferences and with companies, or do you get in and...
Yeah, so I do some hands-on work. So what I do is I have an assessment so people can understand the dynamics of their own team and how it's weighted based on, there's 6 archetypes based on research from the University of Michigan that I see within teams in the high performance team. So what I do is I'll work with a company and say, let's assess where you're at right now and understand the struggles that you're having with your team dynamics. And it could be internal, it could be with their ability to move projects through an organization, but it really centers around how you bring good ideas, better ideas into an organization and get people to be willing to change and look at things differently rather than fearing new ideas. And if you want innovation in an organization, then people have to think differently. And part of the ways you get them to think differently is let them be themselves, and whatever their role is, let them function based on their natural genius. And so I work with companies either to execute this. I do workshops so companies can learn how to understand their team dynamics. And then I do things like today where I speak at events or internal private events.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Which of those do you enjoy the most?
I always like the hands-on part of working with people, hearing the feedback. Yeah.
What did you learn the most about connecting with your kids when you were living in a foreign land?
This is really a good question. The thing I learned most about connecting with the kids.
Is this the first good question? Is that what you're saying?
This is the first good question I've
heard
in the last 7 minutes.
Can the lower thirds, Tony, put provocateur under her?
And like with arrows pointing up.
Yep.
Is that in order to get the kids to come forward and be more open with things, I really had to back off. So,
really?
Yeah, so it was almost like the more I backed off and observed, rather than tried to lead them by the hand and say, come on, give this a try, do this, and I think we do that as bosses, we do that as team members, we do it with ourselves individually, is we consistently try to pull things instead of giving space and allowing them to happen.
Okay, all right, so now I don't feel so bad, because I think with my son, I'm kind of worried that I went through that stage where I thought, okay, I need to back off, and I did. But now I'm wondering, did I take too far of a step back? And my boy just turned 12 a couple of days ago, so now I'm rethinking all that. Yeah, but
Well, and I think when you look at any dynamic where you're backing off and letting people do their thing or allowing things to happen, you do have a delicate dance of, is it too far, too much?
Right.
And what that distance is depends on a situation and any different time. Because a Saturday morning is different than a Friday night.
Look, I do think that's important. I think as humans in general, in relationships, we could stand to back off a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, still be attentive and loving, but also still say, yeah, I love how you said it. Just kind of create some space there, but especially with kids, when it's kids involved, let them know, hey, look, I'm here for you. I always got your back. I always got your back. But I'm going to give you space, and you come to me.
Totally. I mean, I'm not saying there are times when I'm like going and looking between my fingers and just like waiting for the train wreck to happen, but like you can see what's coming, and they're like, no, I got this, Mom, I totally got this. And like, not a literal train wreck, but you know what's going to happen because you've been down that road. But the only reason I know the impact and the consequences in the recovery is because my parents allowed me to have it myself, and what I learned from it helped me grow and become a better person, more resilient person. And it's so hard to watch your kids do that same crash, because that's our nature, is we want to protect them so they don't have to do that. But almost by not allowing them to do that, we take away a gift that's really important for them to develop as their own people. Yeah.
All right, so listen, if we want more parenting tips from you,
absolutely,
or want to bring you in to help us look at our archetypes and try to get our teams to work together better, how do we reach you? How do we find you?
You can find me on my website, www, of course, .carla.johnson.co. Not com, just co.
CO.
Yep, .co.
Because you're too busy to type
I am
in
to just finish it. That was
we got
succinct.
Stuff to do.
I do.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. Carla Johnson, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
All right. welcome back to Content Marketing World Chatter. And again, we want to clear this up. It's chatter, not cheddar. So we apologize for any confusion. The FCC has called us several times on that, and there's no cheese involved here whatsoever. All right? So I just want to be clear about that. Brian Fanzo. Dude, you know how hard it was to get you on the show, Broseph?
Oh, it can't be that hard. I'm excited to be here.
Millennial?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
I don't have it on me now. It's in my bag.
It's getting recharged. It's
Yes.
recharging.
Yeah.
Fanzo, the last time I emceed a conference, I got to introduce you, and that was a while back, and I think you had, at that time, you'd been to about 65 different countries doing keynotes. What's the number?
76.
76 now?
76 now, yep.
Okay.
So 76. My goal was a couple years ago when I left the government, I had to figure out all the countries. So like, it kind of sounds random to know how many countries you've been to. And that's how I kind of got the number. And I was like, ooh, there's a number I can start from. And I said, well, maybe I'll get to 100 countries by the time I turn 40. And I'm 38 now, so my runway for that is out. But maybe, you never know, I can take a big tour.
Okay, for those of you listening in Burma,
Yes.
we would love it if you could hire Brian for a keynote. Maybe press the damn button. Or digital empathy.
Yeah.
Digital empathy is what you're talking about mostly now. I think that's the last thing I see you speak about. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm a tech guy to begin with. I love and believe in the power of social media. But I think for me, my background's in cybersecurity. I worked there for 9 years for the government, and the fundamental element has always been collaboration and community. And I think right now in this digital world, we have fake news and bad news. So how do you cut through the noise? And then at the same time, how do we ultimately move forward with so much innovation and technology? And I think a lot of people tell you have to unplug, we have to remove. And I think it's the wrong way because we can't continue to move forward. It's kind of like when you go on a vacation, you come back and you have all the emails stacked up, right? Unplugging for a short period of time gives you that short euphoria, but then when you come back, you have to kind of roll. And so I think a lot of what I focus on is how can we be better at using technology like AI or AR, VR to get to know people so that we can spend more time being human and use technology to make that connection. So it's not about more technology or removing technology, rather how can we be more empathetic? And then it kind of folds into press the damn button, which I even have the hat is on from that standpoint, where I believe empathy starts with me. And I think if we want to make a more empathetic world, we first have to allow people to be empathetic towards us. And so if every person started sharing more vulnerability, more transparently, I think we would start that movement. I think we always think about, wow, the world should be more empathetic, but how do we get to know people at that level? So it's a difficult one.
That's right. I don't want to do it. You start with that, and you never do it. And that, I learned in stand-up comedy, when you start opening up and sharing, a lot of comedy comes from pain.
Yep.
And when you start off as a comedian, I think a lot of people start off as a comedian, you're right, set up joke, whatever. Maybe that's funny, but it's not that interesting.
Right.
And then when you start sharing about your struggles and talking about, going to therapy and this, that, and the other thing, people that's when I noticed people would come up and talk to me, and then they'd share their story.
For sure.
And they would come up, somebody would stop me, and they know me.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Have we met? No, but I've seen you. And you realize this person has seen stuff. You've shared something with them that you've only shared with your therapist.
Right.
But it starts this, I think it starts something very beautiful.
It does.
A connection to being open. And most importantly, I think people feel like, hey, you know what? I'm not alone.
Right, and I think that's the biggest piece, right? And I think in a world that's more connected than we've ever been before, and I really, I say this, and I know the times that we're living are a little bit difficult, but I believe we're living in the greatest time in history because we have the ability to connect with people and share our stories. Yes. Suicide rates should be going down. We as marketers should not be alienating. We have all this data, we have all this information, we should not feel alone, yet we are going that wrong direction still. And I think a lot of that comes into this vulnerability and transparency. I think it's also when we start to realize that we all have more similarities than anything else. I was diagnosed ADHD at 31 years old, went through a divorce last 3 years ago. By sharing those stories, it's amazing, that connection. And I think we hear relatability. I loved, Tamsin talked about relatability on stage, Ann Hanley talked about it, Scott Stratton talked about trust. And I think those are those key elements. And I think we forget that social media, marketing, technology should enable us to do that at a bigger scale and do it more deeper. But I mean, at the core, we should definitely feel less alone and less isolated. And I think a lot of it comes from this putting ourselves out there and kind of embracing our own vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Man, you mentioned the divorce too. I remember a friend of mine from church was telling me, he said, yeah, man, I got divorced. I moved out to a townhome. And he said for the first year, it was just covered with paperwork and bills and invoices that I couldn't get to.
Right.
And man, when I heard that, Brian, I was just like, oh my gosh, I had so much relief. And I just kind of accepted myself because that's exactly what my townhome looked like. You know, just stuff stacked up because you get too dang depressed to pick up the phone.
Tackle any of that stuff. Yep.
Do anything, you know. And when you realize, wait a minute, I'm not the only person alone with this. Then yeah, you don't. It's a beautiful thing.
It is, and I think business is the same way, right? It's a weird, like we see that beauty there, but I think even from a business perspective, more businesses that are embracing, like, let's face it, your logo and your brand itself. We don't trust a logo or a brand.
That's right.
You know, the study I did with IBM about trust of a brand, and it was funny. We were like one of the big things that you and I have done work together in that space. The millennial Gen Z space, especially when they hear something like we've been in business 60 years, the first thing they think about is, oh, they're old, they're out of touch, they're gonna be slow to move, they're not gonna embrace me. Where that traditionally they were like, well, we use that as like our badge of honor. Like, we've been in business 60 years, and I think a lot of that is like, well, how do you become relatable? Like, and it is the people, right? Let's face it, if you're not empowering the people behind your brand, you're never gonna work. And I think I know why you're probably laughing. It was a very interesting study to get the results back in that organization. I'm like, wait a second, we use this as our staple, but I think it's it's kind of an eye-opening experience for a lot of people.
It is, and yeah, being in business for however long, that doesn't necessarily matter.
No.
I remember when I went. I think when I first joined IBM, I go to get my to get a cell phone. And I said, yeah, we have a corporate plan with you guys. And there's some, probably a 20-year-old saying, okay, what's the name of the company? I said, it's IBM. So he's looking through this paper thing, and he's like, IBM. He says, is there a parent company? I'm like,
oh, that's a good one.
No, and that's, well, he'd never heard of the company.
For sure.
And, just because you've been around for 100 years, you've done all these amazing things. The next generation coming up may not know and may not care.
For sure.
But if you can just start helping your people, the younger people at your company, feel free and have the freedom, and emotional safety to share themselves online, then all that changes.
And I think that we're finally getting at that time. Like, I'm getting most of the speeches, I'm getting full-time speaking as my full gig now, and a lot of companies now, before I feel like they were hiring me only from like marketing focus out, like, hey, here's our partners, our clients. Now I'm getting a lot more internal, like, hey, we want to help our leaders as well as our new hires tell their story, put themselves out there. And I think a lot of it's, it's baby steps. It is a little bit new, and I think especially for people that aren't used to putting certain things out there, I think we've had multiple discussions even in a couple of mastermind groups where it's like, hey, this is different, but once you see the magic, and for me, I've get letters almost on a weekly basis where someone will say, Brian, when you brought up ADHD, it reminded me something about me that, and it might even not even be ADHD, like, hey, I was struggling with this, or my son had this, and I never realized that I wasn't alone, and I could start putting that out there. And I think that part of it is so magical, and I think for businesses now that they're empowering their employees, they're seeing the immediate return on that. And like, how are we going to compete with like the likes of Amazon and like the big old boys? It's put the people that make your brand great out there to the world and tell their stories.
Yeah. So what's one step that a brand could take now to encourage its employees to share, to be vulnerable online?
So I think the most important aspect is celebrating those that are already doing it.
Okay.
Because when you're trying to get people to do something different, sometimes awkward and sometimes outside their comfort zone, it's very difficult to inspire them to do that unless they see others that are doing it getting rewarded. And the celebration, when I say that, some people are like, oh, well, I have to pay them. And you'll be amazed how much a LinkedIn like on a post from the CEO would work wonders for your employees, because your employees like, oh my goodness, the CEO loved that I shared this story online. And something as small as that, where they go tell their coworkers, hey, I decided to post this on LinkedIn, this told my story about how I ended up at this company, the CEO liked it. That person is so much more likely to now be inspired to tell their story, rather than like a brand manager being like, we want you to tell your story. And so I think that's one of the big misconceptions is there's already people in every company pushing things out there, celebrate them. And then I think the other part of it is you have to kind of I always say, don't give rules, give swim lanes. So rather than telling people you have to talk about this, say, hey, these are the things we might not want you to talk about.
Yes.
These are things we would love for you to go, but don't feel obligated. And because it's a swim lane, like you would, like you're swimming, people don't feel like locked in. Like if you told them, you can't mention this and you need to make sure you mention the brand 4 times or whatever those type of things are, that immediately puts like this weird box into what people are doing.
That's right, and it creates fear, because it's like, once I hear rules like that, it's like, okay, I'm going to screw something up regardless. So if you're going to be that, that dictatorial about this stuff, then let me just not try. How can we find out about you and find out more about what you speak about and figure out a way to bring you in?
Sure. So, my speaking website, everything for speaking, is brianfanzo.com. I actually just launched a brand new website with Fable.com as the new content engine there. So, brand new site up and running. But I'm the founder of iSocialFans, so I host 3 podcasts. Put out a lot of content, and so all of that is on isocialfans.com.
Yep.
And then I'm iSocialFans everywhere. So with a Z at the end or a Z for those that are overseas, and search that on your favorite channel. I'm on every social network there is. I don't tell everybody to be on every network, but I'm there so I can help others. So I say pick your favorite one and give me a follow there. And I love the conversation. I think events like this are what I kind of live for, and it's exciting to be a part of it. So yeah, iSocialFans and brianfanzo.com.
Awesome, man. Look, we usually don't do a PSA, but if you have the time and if you care about people, will you help this man get to 100 countries before he turns 40? That's all we're asking for you.
Yes.
Less than a cup of coffee a day. It can be done. Fanzo!
Tim, you're the man.
Thanks,
Appreciate
brother.
it. Cheers.
Thank you so much, man. Take care.
All right.
And we're back. Content Marketing World Chatter. Is that what it is? Not cheddar. We clarified that last time, but I get hung up on a lot because I like cheese. Anyway, we're here with Kate O'Neill, the tech humanist. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
It took us forever. We had to negotiate with your publicist, I think, for like 6 weeks to get you on here. She wanted her own trailer, and that's fine. I'm not saying diva. I'm not saying diva.
I only want you to narrate the trailer. That's what I'm really hoping for.
That I will do. Listen, I believe and I say this with respect, but you're probably the only best-selling author I know who's gone on CNBC for an interview and kept your sunglasses on. the entire time. Let's talk a little bit about that.
I think I should have gotten paid on a bet for that.
Yeah.
I feel like that was probably my most badass thing I've ever done.
That was badass. But as a tech, listen, as a tech humanist, what a better way to talk, to just kind of metaphorically humanize this saying, hey, I'm relaxed here.
Yeah, it's been something like, it's a brand that I've kind of kept. It feels good. Plus, it keeps my hair out of my face, so I feel like that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be on a major media outlet with sunglasses on my head, I just don't feel like I could get any cooler than that. I'm sure I'm not cooler now than that.
Well, listen,
like I'm not that cool.
You got a tough compare. You got a tough compare because you married a rock and roll player.
Well, yes.
Star,
yes. I mean, rock and roll star with great hair. That's
he does have great hair.
That's my
He's
problem.
a very handsome man with great hair. Hottie McCoddleton.
McCoddleton.
What do you call him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
not Bodie McBoatface. That's a different thing.
No, that's a whole different. But join us online afterwards for that story. Okay. Tech humanist. Is that what you spoke on here?
Yeah. So that's generally the overall thrust of my talks when I do speak. It's the impact of data and emerging technology on the future of humanity.
Okay.
Yeah, so then there's kind of two spins to it. One is, if I'm talking to business leaders, corporate leaders, talking about how to lead companies through digital transformation and think about the success of the business while also not screwing over humanity in the process, making sure that they're using technology well to amplify what's good for humans. And then on the other side, there's the more of the practitioner audience. And so talking to strategists and UX professionals, marketers, and so on,
right,
about how do you actually think about the work that you're doing within that context. So you're like smirking now. So I want to know what you're smirking
about.
It's
because I just finished shooting a little comedy video for a B2B tech brand on AI.
Yeah.
And listen, in that first initial meeting, it's like 5 minutes before you get into a discussion about the robots taking over the world.
Right.
So how do you allay those fears? How do you, and how do you, two things, how do you allay the fears with the marketplace?
Yeah.
And then secondly, how do you help enterprises understand that, hey, we do have a moral and ethical responsibility here, and let's make sure we keep things going in the right direction.
Yeah, so those are really good questions, and it's very true that I think doesn't take long of exploring this topic before people are kind of freaked out.
Yes!
So I have to try to okay, we do need to explore the very real nature of what's true about those fears. But then we also have to say, simultaneously, we have to have hope because it's up to us. We're the ones who have to make the decisions and put the actions in place that are going to hopefully smooth this out and put the machines doing the work of humans, not anything else, any other direction of that. So I think the most important thing is to sort of get people feeling empowered about the decisions that they're making, no matter who it is, corporate leaders, government, or just individuals who are thinking about how do they participate in memes on social media, and not necessarily to participate in those memes on social media if it looks like that's just trying to harvest data like the Cambridge Analytica stuff, right?
Right.
So we all have a role to play in this, and I think it's just giving people the appropriate information about how this all plays out and keeping people in this mindset of you have to be savvy, but you can also be hopeful. You can make the right kind of steps to put us on the right path to something that's hopefully going to lead to a better future.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about the best futures for the most people, and I think that's what we can really do with the emerging technologies. The power and capacity and scale of emerging technologies is actually put that toward good use, align business objectives with human outcomes so that business can succeed and bring humanity with it using technology.
Now listen, is this kind of the talk track you're going to have? Is this what you'll be discussing? You got a lecture coming up at Yale University.
Yeah, that's like breaking news,
that's
man.
Breaking
you're
news.
right on it.
You heard it here first on Content Marketing World Chatter. Okay.
I also have taken on a bet to wear a kale sweatshirt when I speak at Yale. So as a vegan, I think that's only appropriate.
It makes sense.
Yeah. That's the general track. So a lot of times some of the discussion about what I'm going to speak on, goes into different areas like the ethics of data or privacy issues or governance or whatever, things like that. There's a lot of kind of tangential or spin-off topics. I always want to bring it back to, I have sort of a core methodology about how this works, and I like to bring it back to that idea. So all of this kind of comes out of the work with Tech Humanist. I also feel like my work is moving toward a vision that includes a sustainability vision, right? Like I think that we have to be very eyes wide open about climate change and this larger picture of what's happening on the planet. So the discussion about AI and robots isn't going to mean anything if we're completely destroying the planet in the next few decades. So I think we have to have that conversation within the context of the larger conversation. So those things I think belong together. We need to be having a very honest appraisal of the real threats to humanity, while also being very hopeful about how we can make those things improve.
Okay, so look, that's a big task, because to be able to have that conversation, first of all, to open up in that conversation, we got to make people feel safe.
Yeah.
And first, we do have to convince people there is hope here.
Yeah.
And to come to the table and let's start this discussion, right? Knowing that, look, we can figure this out.
Right.
And,
right.
What's your take on how we go about that? How do we start these discussions and invite people in where let me leave my things,
Yeah.
Let me leave all my baggage behind and come in and have a genuine discussion with you.
So I think that the thing is to recognize that actually these conversations go well together. Like I think the power of AI and intelligent automation and emerging technology, all that capacity, can actually be deployed to help solve some of the problems we face with the climate, for example.
Yep.
There are water problems that AI has been demonstrated to be able to help with, kind of finding and sourcing water issues and solving food availability issues, solving some of those kinds of things, as well as dealing with sort of carbon issues and all of the kinds of associated topics around the climate. We need a lot of data power and a lot of intelligent decision making around those topics. So it actually turns out to be the case that if we could profitably, meaningfully deploy the right kinds of technology to solve those problems, we'd be in much better shape, and we'd be solving problems for the good of humanity and for the good of the planet. And I believe there's a lot of profit to be made along those areas.
Yeah.
So I think that's the direction we need to be thinking about. So, coincidentally, the UN and their sustainable development goals, SDGs, they identify 17 goals for the planet. All the people on the planet need to have these kind of things solved, and they have to do with equality and food availability and clean air, clean earth, and things like that. If we are focused on how to make sure that those things are taken care of, and again, plenty of profit opportunity within those areas, then we'll also be cleaning up the planet and cleaning up opportunities for all people on the planet. So I think there are ways to be hopeful about this, and I think there are ways to be, sort of successful within this realm.
Okay.
Within a traditional business sense.
Okay. All right. We got to leave it there.
Okay.
Kate O'Neill, the tech humanist. How can we find you?
I'm Kato on Twitter, or koinsights.com.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Tim.
All right. Take care. And we're live now. Okay. Hey, welcome back to Content Marketing World Chatter. We hope you enjoyed the documentary you just watched on the herring. Did you see that? Did I tell you about that?
Not yet.
Okay, well that's not true. I just made all that up. Hey, we're here. Kylie Peters, who runs Brainchild Studios. I met Kylie. I'm talking to you, but I'm actually, look, we met earlier this year at another conference in Boston.
Yep.
You were speaking at a conference in Boston, and I went to hear a session, and then I was like, full disclosure, I was like, I need to talk to you more about this, because you're incredibly bright and have some really good questions, you know how to think through things.
Well, I'm super funny too.
And that's what the improv background, I think, is where we bonded.
Yeah,
you know,
for
and
sure.
Appreciation for Del Close and long form improv. So that your improv background probably had a lot to do with it. But you really do. I just love how you go about asking questions to help people figure out what their brand is and how to market. And I know most of the work you do at Brainchild Studios is helping people think about the right way, the most helpful way to market toward millennial moms.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really focused on making sure that we help our brands understand their target audience, and our primary niche is brands targeting millennial moms, but we also work with nonprofits that target women and girls. So we're really focused on making sure we understand our target audience so we can best and most effectively market to them on behalf of our clients.
Yeah. But it's not just that, because that's not my target market. Just to
No,
be
it's
clear,
not.
All right?
No, it's not. It's not only that.
It's not only that.
But you know, in the name of going niche.
Yes.
But then we also work with like funny people like you.
Right. I appreciate that. Yes. You market toward goldfish. That's really kind of my segment.
Goldfish?
You help me define.
Yes.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
And you'll throw these questions at me like, "Oh my gosh, why didn't I think?" That's a brilliant question, you know. And anyway, you can apply those, I think, to all different kind of segments.
Well, I think it's a matter of listening, honestly, which is an improv, principle. Listen, and yes, and ask questions. So, there's a theory of like ask why 5 to 7 times until you really get to the answer. Like, oh, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Oh, why do you feel that way? Oh, how does this make you feel? Oh, can you talk to me more about what that is? And then it's like, whoa, where did that come from?
Right.
It's like those are the real truths, and we get to base things and strategies around real truths. That's when they start to resonate more.
Okay, but you make it sound very simple. I mean, you have a particular gift at getting into the kernel of things that people may not, who've been working in this for decades, may not even think about. I think that's what's caught me off guard a couple times.
I think that's a good thing. So thank you.
No, it's a good thing. It's a great thing, because when we're talking, you'll ask me a question like, there's a silence on the phone.
Those are my favorite moments.
Is
actually.
that right? 'Cause
yeah.
you can hear.
I'm like, oh, I got him.
Yeah.
I'm like, one for Kylie.
That's right. That happens a lot. I'll sit there and I'll think, dang, wait a minute. And it takes me a while to just even step into the truth of all that. And now you've kind of just totally flipped this assumption that I've had that's kind of has held me back for a long time. And you just totally flip it. And I'm like, wait a minute. So, I don't know. I think that's probably your little gift.
Well, thank you. I try really hard to bring a unique perspective, one that's like very, very much so rooted in empathy. You talk to anybody who knows me and they'll be like, oh, Kylie has all the feels. And I think that's really helpful when you're trying to build authentic relationships with people, with consumers, with brands, whoever it is. When you base that in empathy and honesty and authenticity, it opens up the opportunity for a bit of vulnerability, but that's really where you can truly start to build meaningful relationships and ask those questions.
That's right. And a lot of times you'll say to me, I'm going to politely challenge that.
Yes.
You will say that. And I think more of us need to do that. I think more of us need to, I think we got to get caught up in being polite and maybe not get into the challenge part, And I think that really, I think for friendships and relationships, I think that's critical. And even in business relationships, to say, well, wait, what if we did it this way?
Well, I mean, let's be honest, that's how you come up with like the best ideas, right? Is when everyone gets a chance to like toss in their 2 cents,
right.
And then you go back and forth and you kind of work on refining that. And I think when you eliminate the opportunity to politely challenge, you're kind of doing everyone a disservice by just being like, oh yeah, that was your idea? Okay, moving on. I don't care enough to ask further questions. Let's just keep moving.
Right.
But yeah, I do like to politely challenge because, especially as we get into certain conversations, it is a level of vulnerability, and so you don't ever want to betray anyone's trust in those conversations, but you're always coming at it from the angle of meaning well. And so that's why I use that term, politely challenge, because I want to, one, thank you and whoever it is I'm having the conversation with for opening up with me, but then I'm just going to push you a little bit further past your comfort zone and see what might lie on the other side there.
Okay. And I got to imagine that probably is what one of the pieces of the work that you do with brands that gives you the most joy.
Oh my gosh, it's the most fun. It's so fun. I really enjoy having authentic conversations and having those good old heart-to-hearts. And you come out and you're like, I'm exhausted, but I feel so whole. It's like I need a nap, but this was great. And getting to do that work with brands it's the same type of feeling. Getting to dig in and ask questions and really try to understand their challenges and the problems they're running into, and maybe the problems they didn't even know that they were running into.
Right.
That happens all the time. But the fact that they're willing to open up and break down those walls and open up those doors and like, oh, okay, I trust you that you're not going to take advantage of this or you're not going to make me regret this, is so rewarding. And I want to do everything that I can to make sure that I protect that trust and dig in there. And then when we all come out on top.
Right.
And it's just so exciting. It's like this revolution of oh my gosh, that was the clarity I've been seeking.
Yeah.
So it's very fun.
Yeah. How does that typically start? How do you start a relationship with a client like that? Because you can't, if you don't know them, it takes a little while to kind of get into this discussion, right?
Yeah. Well, or you just ride escalators and take selfies with them.
It worked for us.
Yeah, it worked for us.
It did.
No, honestly, it's just kind of about trying to open up those conversations where they feel like they may be appropriate. Sometimes people are seeking out solutions, and other times they're not. And so you kind of you can't necessarily force somebody into a position that they're not ready to dive into.
Right.
So oftentimes what happens for us is when I start to talk to a client or a prospect, I'm just really trying to ask questions and understand where they are. Where are you now? Where are you trying to go? What are the things that you're running into? Because a lot of times clients will come to me and they'll say, okay, well, this is the thing I need you to do. And it's like, so I hear you.
Yes.
I'm going to just put that right here for 1 second.
Right.
I want to take 3 steps back and talk about how we got there. What are truly the challenges you're running into? Because I think as a society, we're so quick to be like, I have a problem, that's the solution, duh, okay, moving on. And oftentimes we miss all of that groundwork that truly leads to a long-term solution versus a Band-Aid solution.
Yeah.
And so by taking those 3 steps back and asking those questions that are really rooted in the challenges we run into, it helps to provide a more long-term sustainable solution, which ends up being best for everybody in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. Now look, is there can you think of we got about a minute left.
Okay.
A project that comes to mind that you're particularly proud of that you can talk about working with a client?
Yeah. We recently had the great fortune of working with a nonprofit that supports women on the East Coast, and they put all of their trust in us to help rebrand them, launch a summer program, do things that they as an organization had never done before. And lucky for me, I had a good friend of mine also knew the executive director, and so that was kind of a point of trust. She was like, maybe Kylie's a safer bet, but we'll see. They did a national search and they landed on us. And we were able to do this incredible, super rewarding work on empowering women across the country and we launched a couple websites for them, we launched a couple new brands for them, and then we assisted, we can't take full credit for this, but we assisted in increasing their annual year-over-year donations by over 50% in the first few months of working together. So, you know, when you take a look at like the intrinsic and sentimental and emotional value in that, and then you couple that with the business challenges that we were able to help them achieve and exceed, I mean, yeah, I'm super proud of that work.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
So if we want you to come do that for us, how do we find you at Brainchild Studios?
Go to brainchildstudios.com. You can email info@brainchildstudios.com. You can find me on social at Kylie Peters. Find Brainchild at Brainchild Studios. But yeah, check out brainchildstudios.com, and I look forward to hearing back from whoever's interested.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for being on the show. I'm going to see if we get time to do the extended online version and do a Herald together. How about that?
Oh,
Two-person Herald.
boy.
Boom. Done.
Okay, challenge accepted.
Kylie Peters, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, take care. Y'all guys.